A new edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Podcast Network and on Patriots Press Pass. I'm Evan Lazar, joined as always by Alex Barth, and never a dull moment in the Patriots offseason. Alex, the news cycle just keeps on churning. I don't even know where we start today. I think we got to start with the GOAT, but we're going to talk about Tom Brady. We're going to talk about the retirement snub that has everybody all hot and bothered. We're also going to discuss this lawsuit that just came out with Brian Flores and the New York Giants that includes a text message from Bill Belichick on the hiring process there for the Giants that Flores is calling a racist hiring process, which is fascinating. We're going to hit on Josh McDaniels officially and Dave Ziegler being named as the Raiders head coach and GM pairing, which we talked about last time, Alex, on Sunday when we did the breaking news show on Josh McDaniels, and I said that I wasn't going to believe it until McDaniels was sitting there at the podium in black and silver. Well, we got that image yesterday, and that's a done deal now. And we will also discuss the ongoing Senior Bowl that we are seeing right now. Currently, some clips going up on Twitter. NFL Network, of course, pulled their coverage of the Senior Bowl today for Brady news and notes, I'm assuming, and talk. But let's start with Brady. I've already blown my gasket earlier on the channel, Alex, about how ridiculous I think this entire snub or disrespect in the retirement post is. But I think the bigger thing I want to hit on, I do want to talk about some great Brady games and some moments because I'm disappointed and bummed out that that's not what the story and that's not what we get to do today. I wish that we could sit here post Brady retirement announcement and just reminisce about all the good times, right? And unfortunately, we're talking about this kind of stuff. You can give your take if you want on the snub, but most importantly, I also wanted to ask you about where you think that things with this Brady retirement goes from here, right? In terms of, do we get the ceremony in Gillette Stadium anytime soon? Do we get the jersey retirement? Do we get the Patriots Hall of Fame? Do you feel like this is still going to go the way that Patriots fans want it to go post-playing career?
I would hope so. Yeah, I'm annoyed. He could have mentioned the Patriots. I think this is a page out of Bill Belichick's playbook. I think he's essentially using one of Bill Belichick's favorite lines here, right? When Bill Belichick doesn't want to talk about something, they release a statement. He's done this a number of times, whether it was Brady leaving, whether it was Cam Newton with the issues with the COVID in training camp, when Antonio Brown, remember all of it.
Right.
He releases the statement, and then he refers back to the statement. And I think this was essentially Brady telling New England, I already touched on it. And he did give not one, but two heartfelt statements back 2 years ago in 2020. He could have mentioned the Patriots again. He probably should have mentioned the Patriots again. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I think it is unfortunate. To me, today was supposed, and I expressed this from the moment he left, that my biggest fear was that Brady would no longer be a Patriot, having to share him with Tampa the way, right, Colts and Broncos fans have to share Peyton Manning. Today was supposed to be the day Tom Brady became a Patriot again, and instead it's been about how much Brady hates the Patriots, and I think that's really unfortunate. I would love to just celebrate the man's career. It almost works out now that he got 2 retirements because we got to do that on Saturday, right?
Right.
We finally found something Tom Brady doesn't know how to do well, and that's retire. So I'm bummed about it. I'll spend the day celebrating Tom Brady's accomplishments. Look, the thank you is the 6 rings. I was 6 years old. I had no idea what football was. I couldn't have cared less. He got me hooked on the sport. I absolutely love this game. As much as I love anything that I'm around, and it's given me so much joy over the years. It's given me a career, obviously. And Brady, none of that happens without Tom Brady. So I don't need to thank you. The man's given me more than enough. I actually said to somebody, because I was on the air Saturday when it happened on the Sports Hub, which was an unreal experience, just incredible experience to be somebody who went from being 6 years old to then get to tell Boston the news that he was retiring. And I said, as a joke to my dad, I was like, he gave me one more. He gave me one more chance to kind of smile and have this out of body experience. So I'm not going to chase the thank you. Should he have put it in there? Probably. I'm not going to lose sleep over the fact that he didn't. And we'll move on. And hopefully he comes back. He gets his red jacket. We'll see if he does the one-day contract thing, which, by the way, everybody talking about, he's still under contract with the Bucs or whatever. Those one-day contracts aren't real contracts. I just hope everybody knows that. It's not legitimate. So anyway, if you want to get upset about it, get upset about it. I'm fine with that too. I understand it's personal for everybody. I just think he gave us more than enough. So
yeah. Look, I'm not trying to tell people how to feel. I think earlier I came off like I was trying to tell you that you shouldn't be upset about it. If you're upset about it, then be upset about it. But my personal feeling on it, don't be upset about it for long, right? Like, this is not something that we need to hold over Tom Brady. And I think one of the most disappointing parts about this entire 2 years to me with Tom Brady, Alex, is that this has turned into this entire thing, right? With Brady, of the divorce and him versus Belichick and why he left New England and now why he snubbed the Patriots in his retirement announcement. And all of this is just trying, in my opinion, to pit Tom Brady as an enemy here in Boston, of all places. And that to me is just absolutely ass backwards. Like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to make this out to be, oh, well, why did he do it? And he doesn't like the Patriots anymore, and he's slighting Patriots fans. It doesn't have to be that deep. I think he closed the chapter with New England 2 years ago. I think a lot of Patriots fans, once you can stomach it, because I'll admit that, talking about the past and talking about Brady and Patriots uniform is not the easiest for everybody. But once you can stomach it, go watch Man in the Arena, because that's a 11-part documentary series where 10 of the 11 episodes are about his time with the Patriots. And all he does is praise the Patriots, the organization, Bill Belichick, the entire thank you tour that Patriots fans are looking for, that they wanted in this statement this morning about his retirement, is all right there in documentary form on ESPN and on Hulu, right? So go watch that if you want that sort of thing. Why did he do this today? Ultimately, I think that he felt like he was closing the Bucs chapter of his career, because I don't think, and I could be wrong, because he is the second leadingest passer in Tampa Bay Bucs history.
He's second most in touchdowns. I don't remember about the other.
I think he's
the other numbers
there in yards as well.
He's got to be, yeah.
Yeah, but he's got the second most touchdowns. He won them a Super Bowl, so there might be some ceremonial stuff down there in Tampa Bay for Tom Brady as well at some point in time. But the way that I initially read this was actually him saying, I'm retiring from football. Thank you to the Bucs for the last 2 years, but now it's time to go home, right? And then because he didn't mention the Patriots, I see this unfolding in front of me, that all of a sudden all these outcries come in that he didn't mention the Patriots. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I figured he didn't mention the Patriots because he's going to be mentioning the Patriots for the rest of his life.
Right. The rest of his the rest of his post career is going to be about the Patriots, which would be great.
Right. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, wait, he's going to go into the Hall of Fame as a Patriot. He's going to go into the Patriots Hall of Fame. His number 12 is going to get retired at Gillette Stadium. His statue is going to get built outside Gillette Stadium. They might name Route 1 Tom Brady Highway. Like, I don't know where it ends, right? Because you can't possibly do enough from my perspective to honor Tom Brady in the city of Boston, in the area of New England. So I'm thinking to myself, this was him being able to just put on there, okay, Bucs, thank you. Thanks for the ride the last 2 years. I'm moving on, right? And then now we start the Patriots chapter of his post-playing career, which he hinted at in week 4 when he was here, when he said that he was going to be a part of the Patriots community in his post-playing career. So I get why people are upset. I get why people feel snubbed. When it comes to the one-day contract stuff, Alex, I don't know if I've given my full one-day contract take on the air yet. You know how I feel about it in general. I think it's a whole lot of blown smoke for no reason. I don't think that Brady's that type of guy. I don't think that he's going to want the red carpet rolled out for him and make this entire scene like that. As much as we all, as media and fans, would love for him to do that, I don't think that he personally wants that sort of thing done for him. I think that he kind of feels like, I'm going to go to Montana or Costa Rica with Giselle and the kids and disappear for a while.
Right.
That's sort of the way that I look at it with Brady. So I got to admit, And I'm not the person. I don't do the conspiracy. I don't do the why was this done, this and that and the other thing. I don't do all those types of things as well as other people in our line of work do. Like, I leave that to you guys at the Sports Hub to tell me why I should be mad about something, right? So when I first read it, I really did not feel like, oh, the first thing that came to mind wasn't he snubbed the Patriots. The first thing that came to my mind was, oh, he's closing the Bucks chapter, and now we're moving on to post-playing career Tom Brady, where he's back to being a New England Patriot. But now I guess we'll see if that ends up being the case.
Yeah, I think I texted you about it, like, oh man, he didn't mention the Pats. I'm more annoyed that this is going to be part of his legacy now. Like, I don't care so much.
Saying.
Like, that's the thing. It was dumb for him not to do it. I don't really care that he did it or not. But the reason it was dumb is there's people acting like this takes away the 6 Super Bowls.
Right.
There's people acting like this is the definitive Patriots Tom Brady memory. Maybe if he never won here, right? Maybe if like Matthew Stafford had walked to, like, maybe if Matthew Stafford retires and doesn't thank the Lions, like, it's a little different, right? But those 6 trophies still count. Right. I still have all those memories, right?
Yeah, the banners are still up there. Right.
This doesn't mean that J.R. Redmond or Terrell Buckley or Richard Seymour or Mike Cloud or any of the just random names. It doesn't mean any of them aren't still in my brain. I still have, like, I have a very cherished, it's funny because it's the anniversary of Super Bowl 49. I have a very cherished personal memory that I'll keep to myself, but I have a very cherished personal memory of Super Bowl 49. And people are acting like I shouldn't think about that today, right? That, oh, he did it on the anniversary of the Malcolm Butler pick to take away from the memory. I still have that memory. I still know how I felt in that moment. I still, am very thankful for that. I still am. And I just don't want to I don't care that he didn't do it. I just don't want to have to bring this up every time we talk about Tom Brady. And when they do retire his number, oh, but he didn't thank them in the post. Like, I don't want to do that. It's weird. We get it's weird. We can mention it's weird. After today, let's put it to bed. After today, I really couldn't care. It's weird. It's fine to say it's weird. It's weird. I really don't care about it after today, though.
That's exactly how I feel about it. That's what I was trying to articulate earlier, and I got a little bit heated and wasn't able to clearly articulate it as well as I wanted to, is that it's weird, it's odd, it was a miscalculation on his part about the public reaction, but that's all it should ever be. This does not have to be a part of Tom Brady's legacy. I've seen people, and I get it, it's a vocal minority potentially on Twitter. Twitter's not real life. Our comment section's not real life. I love all you, but you're not real life. Right? There's a whole lot of masses out there that feel differently. But I'm sure if I turned on 98.5 today too, Alex, they would be having callers calling in and saying, always have a sour taste in my mouth now about Brady. This will always impact how I feel about Tom. All that should not happen. If that's how you feel from all this, then you're being petty and ridiculous. If you're upset right now in the moment that he didn't mention the Patriots, be upset. If you hold this over him for the rest of time, then that's on you. That's not on Tom Brady.
That's doing it at that point. You're doing a disservice to him. And I just want to remember, like, the whole reason I was actually excited when Brady retired, because again, that's when he became a Patriot again. I just want to reminisce about the good years. That's all I want to do. It'd be nice if he's here for it. He doesn't have to be here for it. It'd be nice if he's here for it. But I just want to reminisce about the good years. That's really all I wanted to do.
Yeah, me as well. And that's the most disappointing part, is that here we are. Just talking about this. If you want an answer why, we've said why a million times. I personally think the why is because he feels like he's going to have his time to commemorate, celebrate, reminisce about his Patriots days. He's 44 years old, guys. Like, he's going to have another 40 years to talk about this, right? I think that's the way that he's looking at it. If you're looking for a reason why, he's going into the Hall of Fame as a Patriot. His number's getting retired at Gillette Stadium. He said he was going to be back here in his post-playing career and be a part of the Patriots community. I think the why is that he feels like there's bigger things to come with the Patriots and celebrating his Patriots career. I hope that that's the case. I hope that that's right. I want to move on from this. The last thing I want to hit on here, because I would be a little bit of a hypocrite after I said all day long that I wish that we were celebrating Tom Brady's career and talking about Tom Brady's career and reminiscing today instead of talking about this garbage. let's talk a little bit about Tom Brady's career. Obviously, you can't put 5 minutes of show and sum up 7 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowl MVPs, 3 NFL MVPs, 19 Pro Bowls, 6-time All-Pro. Give me like your top 1 or 2 favorite Patriots moments with Tom Brady, favorite Patriots memories with Tom Brady, Alex.
So the one for me that I think encapsulates all of it, and this is looking with hindsight, I don't think we realized at the time what this moment meant, but Brady's not even on the field for this. The 2014 divisional game against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Go back and watch the clip when they're playing Josie, right? And the crowd's going nuts and the defense is on the field and it's that 4th down coming up. And everybody, like Bill's yelling, the defense, everybody's frantic. The crowd's going nuts. The Ravens are trying to figure out what's going on. And they cut to Tom Brady and he's just cool as can be tossing the ball on the sideline. Yeah. Like you would think he's warming up for the first day of training camp. And that the whole vibe in that stadium at that moment was just, and I've talked about this before a little bit. I think that's what the Patriots dynasty really was. And I know that, they still hadn't won the Super Bowl yet. And that was technically during a 10-year gap where they didn't win them, but it was a party. It was, we know we're better than you. You know, we're better than you. Everybody knows we're better than you. And we're just going to go out and prove it. No nonsense, no drama, none of this. That's the thing. People forget, for all the drama between supposed drama between Brady and Bill, that really started in 2014. That Ravens game, it hadn't hit yet. Everything was still all good. The biggest, question mark was, is Brady almost done? And then they go out and they go on that incredible run and all of that. I think instead of a moment, I said this on Saturday, if there's a word to describe Tom Brady that I just think makes him so unique, Tom Brady it's Tom Brady and the Patriots at their height. Tom Brady was inevitable.
Yeah.
That's the word with Tom Brady. It's, you down, what he did against the Seahawks in that 4th quarter. That is the best defense I think Brady ever played. It's certainly the best defense he ever played in Super
Personally,
Bowl.
I think that's the best game of the dynasty, just from a pure talent perspective on both sides of the football.
To do what he did in the 4th quarter and then to be down 28-3. And, we're all sitting around. I remember watching that game. I was at my parents' friends. We're all sitting around on the couch at halftime. And, you're down 23 in the Super Bowl. Some people are starting to talk about the offseason. We're sitting there. All right, they do this, and this. They come back and we got a ball game. Right. And what do you know? They did this, and this without breaking a sweat. And it was, again, it just felt inevitable.
Yeah.
And I don't know that any other athlete, maybe, and frankly, if any other athlete comes close in the last 40, 50 years, it's David Ortiz, which shows us how lucky we've been in Boston, where you get that guy in that moment. It almost wasn't dramatic because you just knew you already knew what he was going to do. You didn't know how he was going to do it, right? The Ortiz grand slam in 13, Brady 28-3, Brady coming back down 14 twice against the Ravens.
Yeah.
He was inevitable. And I don't know that there's ever been an athlete, at least positively inevitable. I think we can name some that are negatively inevitable. Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know that there's ever been an athlete that was inevitable. What he was going to do was inevitable the way Tom Brady did it. And that to me sums up Tom Brady's career. It's as miraculous as it was, at the same time, it was almost predictable, which is, when you think about it, it gave me goosebumps just saying that.
And what was so annoying to everybody else that wasn't a Patriots fan watching it is that how predictable it all was.
Because they knew too.
Yeah.
They knew too.
Yeah. I think the thing that you said about him tossing the ball on the sideline when all the chaos was around him, that to me is such a rare trait. And I think a lot of people nowadays are searching for quarterbacks that can do things like that. Like a Joe Burrow is kind of has some of that cool factor, right? Some of that swagger and that ability to, in my mind, Tom Brady had an ability that, in the moment when he made a throw, if it was a touchdown, if it was an interception, he would show emotion, right? But the ability to move on from that play immediately, I think, is what stood out the most about him, even from an early age, even 01, 02, 03 Brady, was able to not allow things to snowball on him, not allow mistakes to snowball, not allow things to get out of hand. And that's what always gave the Patriots such a puncher's chance in every single game. I also look at just from an individual game standpoint, even though it didn't end the way that we all wanted it to, there were so many moments in 2007 that I will never forget. Like that week 1 game against the Jets where they come out and I think Randy Moss had like 180 receiving yards on 9 catches, a 51-yard touchdown from Brady. And immediately that thing was a wagon, right? You just knew right away week 1 that, oh my God, Randy Moss can still play. And now he's catching the passes from prime Tom Brady. Who knew that at the time that prime Tom Brady would last 20 years? But regardless, that season was magical for so many different reasons. But I just remember, I think it was 38-14 Patriots in week 1. I just looked this up before we started recording. Randy Moss had 9 catches for 183 yards and a touchdown when everybody in the world thought he was washed. And he comes to the Patriots and lights the world on fire from the jump. I also look at some of the games earlier on. I will always remember that AFC title game in Pittsburgh. I thought that was one of
the one where he was sick.
Yeah, he's sick.
Yeah.
It's Brady's flu game. The Pittsburgh Steelers were 15-1 that year. The Patriots were 14-2 and were the number 2 seed in the conference, which I can't imagine has happened very many times, if at all, outside of that one instance. The Steelers are 15-1. They get the number 1 seed. The Patriots go to Pittsburgh. They destroy the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Brady had the touchdown pass to Deion Branch. That I think is probably the signature throw of that game. Rodney Harrison had a huge game on the defensive side of the ball for the Patriots. I think, did he have a pick 6, Rodney Harrison, in that game? Or is it just
he had a pick? I'm trying to remember. My play I always remember from that game is the Deion Branch end around where he's waving goodbye to the Steelers.
Yeah,
I like that moment.
They absolutely destroyed the Steelers in Ben's rookie year. That was one of the great early Brady games as well. That's what I wish we were talking about today.
Well, we're talking. Don't even put that qualifier on it. We're talking about it. We're controlling the narrative. Let me ask you this, Evan.
Yes.
Brady's one trait. Yeah. One defining trait. Because he was elite at a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking you to minimize any of it. But the one trait in your mind that made Tom Brady Tom Brady.
That's such a good question.
Do you want me to give my answer first so you can think about it?
Yes.
I think for as high as his football IQ was, and it was high, for the clutch ability, the leadership ability, for his accuracy throwing the football, for his movement in the pocket, all of that, which was some of those things he's the best ever at. What sets Tom Brady apart to me is the consistency.
Yeah.
And I mean that in 2 ways. You know, we're doing a lot of celebrating about guys like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I'm not saying those guys aren't great quarterbacks.
Sure.
But Mahomes really kind of sucked the first half of the year. Did he lead the NFL in interceptions at Halloween? Or he was up there, something like that? Josh Allen went 3 months without back-to-back games with a passer rating over 90. How many times did Tom Brady have a bad game in a season? Maybe 1. I mean, it was every single week with him. And then the other level of consistency on that is he did it for 22 years.
The drive is what stands out to me. I think like all the physical things, like obviously I could break down his game and talk about the accuracy and the decision making in the pocket and the ability to get rid of the ball quickly and read defenses and all these types of things. But I think that the drive, the competitive drive that he had, and the one other moment I wanted to mention that I think is encapsulates in a lot of ways the Brady mystique is in 28-3 when he's on the sideline going up and down saying, we got to play harder, we got to play tougher, we got to play smarter. And he's trying to rally the troops. And nobody in that moment believed more that the Patriots could come back and win that game than Tom Brady. And that, I think, really, it just encapsulates what he brings to the table. Like, I guarantee you, in a way, when the Bucs were down 27-3 to the Rams in the divisional round, I guarantee you that they thought, well, this guy's come back from 28-3 before, so we're fine, right? Yeah. And that confidence and that ability to instill that confidence in the rest of your team, those were the types of traits that because you can compare arm talent. You can compare accuracy. Maybe like you can compare supercomputer brains between Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, right? You can compare Joe Montana and Tom Brady's clutch gene. You can compare those, but that type of belief that we were never out of a game and that Brady was always going to rise to the top in any game that he played, I don't think that will ever be matched by anybody. Like, I think that's a trait that is one of one in Tom Brady's world.
Well, then I think you add to it too. Again, there's been guys that have maybe done that for a window, right?
Right.
He did it for 22 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's never going to happen again. And there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league now. They're just not going to do. They might match some of his statistical numbers because for the first half of Brady's career, he played in a different era. You couldn't throw the ball, right? He led the league in touchdowns with 28 at one point in his career.
Yeah, 2002.
Right. That's a completely so. Some of his numbers might get matched, but again, the rate. Here's the one thing. Here's if I could put one Brady fact that will never be matched. He won 2 Super Bowls 19 years apart.
Right.
That will never be done again. The average length of a Hall of Fame quarterback's career in the modern era, Evan, is 14 years.
The guy had like 4 or 5 primes, right? We kept on saying, oh, this is not just the cliff. It's not even that the cliff didn't come for him. Decline never came for him. He never got worse.
He never regressed. We're so lucky in Boston. And I think you're starting to see this now with some athletes. For the most part, all of our favorite players for my generation, they got good and they stayed good. David Ortiz led the league in doubles at 40 years old in his final year. Patrice Bergeron is still arguably the best two-way forward in hockey. You know, Pierce and Garnett faded, but they didn't do it here. They did it in Brooklyn. Our generation of Boston sports fans, in terms of, the elite athletes, who did we really see fade? I guess maybe Dustin Pedroia would be the only one, right?
Yeah, Paul Pierce and KG maybe a little bit.
But again, they kind of did that in Brooklyn. They didn't really do it here.
Yeah. And KG's body started to give out on him at the end in Boston.
He was getting hurt a little bit. You're right. But the point being, like, so I'm making it sound not rare. But in football, again, I look at a guy like Josh Allen, who, again, had a great year. That guy gets hit a lot.
Right.
He takes a beating. You're telling me he's going to do what's he been in the league? 4 years, right?
Yes.
So you're telling me he's going to do that for another 18 years, which, keep in mind, his opponents are only going to get bigger and faster and stronger over those 18 years. He's going to keep doing that. Patrick Mahomes, look at that offensive line. Patrick Mahomes takes a beating.
Yeah.
He's going to do that for another 17 years and mix 6 rings in there. It's just, it's not going to be done again. It's not going to, it's never going to happen again. I don't care how good you think they are. Burrow, Herbert, Lamar, whoever.
Right.
The circumstances, the way Brady was wired mentally and physically, and the way the league works now, it's never going to happen again. Never.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for letting us divulge into Brady a little bit there. I know that some of you guys want us to talk about this Patriots team and look forward, but if you are a Patriots fan and you can't look backward and appreciate Tom Brady for a few minutes, then this might not be the right show for you. I mean, just put it to you that way, right, Alex? I mean,
I wasn't going to get nostalgic today.
You got to let us have this one, all right? And we're going to have it again when he retires his number. We're going to have it again when he goes into the Hall of Fame in 2027, which, by the way, he does have to wait. I get it's a process, but it's a little bit ridiculous. But that's besides the point.
So here's what I'll say, though, in terms of the one-day contract. It's essentially just an extra one of those days.
Right.
I get you don't need it. I don't need it. But I want all of the Brady, I want the jersey retirement. I want the Patriots Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame, the one-day contract, spread them out.
Yeah.
Spread them out. Give me as many of them as possible over as long a period as possible. So that, to me, that's where I'm at with the one-day contract. I don't need it, but it's one extra day to celebrate Tom Brady, so I'll take it. That's how I feel about it.
I agree. All right, let's move on here and talk about, I guess let's talk about this Brian Flores story.
I think completely changed directions here.
Yeah, the story has been evolving as Alex and I have been on the air here, so I'm trying to keep up with everything that's going on. The Giants just released a statement. Brian Flores, from what I understand, reading as quickly as I could here, has sued the NFL, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants, and the Denver Broncos in a class action lawsuit claiming that they had a racist process for their head coaching hirings. And then I believe Miami, it's more towards about his firing and the handling of his situation there towards the end of his Miami tenure with the Dolphins. Bill Belichick is named, and not only named, but there is a private text message between Bill Belichick and Brian Flores where Bill Belichick, I believe, made a mistake and meant to text Brian Daboll and texted Flores by mistake, congratulating Daboll on getting the head coach job before Brian Flores even interviewed with the Giants for the head coaching gig. So some questions here. I don't know if we have enough information at this point in time to give a real take on who's right or who is wrong in this situation. But I definitely look at this, and I would also say that Brian Flores has also said that the Dolphins tried to pay him to lose games during his time in Miami, which is also not great. I look at this and I say, I get what Brian Flores is going for. I can tell you right now, it's an uphill battle in any court system in the United States to file a class action like this and win against the NFL. The NFL is a private enterprise. As long as they can prove that they interviewed and did their due diligence, whether they believe that Brian Flores was actually in the running for their vacant head coaching positions or not is not really the point, right? Like, unfortunately, in the real world, just the same as in the NFL, when you're dealing with private businesses make hires all the time that are because people know people or people have connections to the inside or whatever, right? I mean, there's a million reasons why these things happen. With the Giants, Brian Daboll, they hired a Bills disciple to be the general manager, and then they hired Brian Daboll. In a lot of ways, it's not that different than what the Raiders just did with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, right? So this is what happens. Now, I feel for Brian Flores having said that, because it is crystal clear to everybody that watches football and that watches it at the levels that we do, Alex, that Brian Flores is one of the best 32 coaches in the NFL. He deserves to be a head coach in the National Football League. He's one of the best 32 guys at it in the world. But the problem is that it's not always about who's the best in these situations. Sometimes it's also about who you know.
Yeah. I don't know that it's a right or wrong thing. And I don't know. I'm texting some legal experts right now saying like it's a tough case to win.
Very tough.
It's probably more just he wants this out there and this is the way to do it.
Right.
And he's putting his career on the line here. So, it's something he feels strongly about, as he should, and credit him for that. And I think that's more what this is about. Again, I'm not a legal expert. I can't tell you if he's going to win, what he would win, what it would mean. I don't know. But I think it's stuff that, we've kind of heard about happening, and now it's all right there and it's in front of us and it's laid out. There's a story about the Denver Broncos and him interviewing them a few years back where they showed up late and drunk to his interview. Like, I mean, that's just unprofessional. Like, you don't do that stuff.
Right.
That's just a lack of person-to-person respect, right? So that's kind of just where I'm at with it. I think we knew this stuff goes on in the background. For a while now, the Rooney Rule has been something that's in question. Where does it really help? Is it really helping to further the case of minority coaching candidates, minority general manager candidates, what have you? Or is it just essentially a box to check and teams will do what they do? I think the new rule where you reward the teams for developing these coaches instead of hiring them, I think that makes a lot more sense, right?
Yes.
What do you do with the Rooney Rule now? I don't know. I'm not an expert on all that, but I think it just kind of highlights it. And again, I think the league has done, again, I like that new rule. I think that certainly helps further the cause, but I think it just highlights still how far the league has to go.
So when Brian Flores was fired by the Dolphins, Mike Tomlin was the one black coach in the entire NFL. 1 out of 32 teams had a black coach heading the ship. And in a league that's obviously dominated by black athletes, And looking at this about how many minority coaches are on staffs, that is a ridiculous number. We all know that. We all know that that's a problem, right? That there is only one minority coach. One black coach. Robert Saleh is also a minority technically. But looking at it like that, that's a big concern for the league moving forward. I think in these processes are a big concern to a degree. But at the same time, like I come back to, it's unfair. It's an unfair process. But I also would say that in a lot of ways, when Joe Schoen gets hired by the Giants, everybody knew Brian Daboll was his guy. They did what they had to do by interviewing other candidates. They interviewed Leslie Frazier. They interviewed Brian Flores. They interviewed Kevin O'Connell, I believe, got an interview as well from the Rams. They interviewed other candidates, but everybody knew that their guy was Brian Daboll. With the Raiders, they take him as a package deal, right? Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. That one was obviously about connections and relationships and things like that. And I look at some of these other minority candidates. I hope Byron Leftwich gets the Jacksonville job, but because he is not wanting to work with Trent Baalke,
which can you blame him?
Don't blame him at all. But because of that, he might not get it, right? They might have to go in a different direction because they don't want to fire Trent Baalke. So, man, this is what happens. Like this, you and I have dealt with politics like this in our daily lives too, and I'm sure everybody has that's over the age of working age, that's living in the real world. You deal with these politics all the time in the workplace, right? With interviews and who gets a job and who doesn't get a job. I feel for Brian Flores. I don't know where this goes for him. I don't know what more we can really say about it at this point. It's just an unfortunate situation. And one last thing, I want to spin it a little bit.
I would just say one other thing on this is the league might have to have Stephen Ross sell the team.
Yeah,
I think that needs to be considered.
If he was truly paying Brian Flores under the table to lose football games, then absolutely.
Well, so there's that, which is a massive, massive, massive problem. I would say equally as big of a problem. And I don't know if you didn't get to this, Evan. After the 2019 season, immediately or I think it was during the 2019 season. I have to go back and find the exact quote. Basically, before Brady was officially a free agent, apparently Stephen Ross leaned hard on Flores to recruit Brady, which would have been tampering.
Right.
To the point where he basically pulled a parent trap. He set up a lunch for Flores I think it was like on a boat or at a restaurant near a boat, some with a boat. He set up a lunch for Flores at an establishment where he knew Brady would be without telling Flores Brady would be there. And when Flores found out, he left. And Flores alleges after that point, it all went downhill and Ross got very cold towards him. So basically, if he fired Flores because, and this isn't including the racial component of it.
Right.
If he fired Flores because, one, he refused to lose games on purpose, and two, because he wouldn't tamper and illegally recruit Tom Brady, then he needs to go. Then he can't run that team. Then that team's never going to be able to operate within the regulations of the NFL. So, that's, again, before the racial component. Obviously, the racial component's a part of it. And let it be a reminder to everybody, too, tanking only happens from the general manager level up. Coaches and players have no incentive to tank. They're all playing for their jobs, but on top of all of it, I think the league needs to take a long, hard look at Stephen Ross's ownership in Miami, because that franchise has been a mess for a while now, decades. And to see something like this, that's not an owner the league should contend with, especially if he's trying to throw games and the league is going to have these gambling deals.
Yeah.
Again, that's not the main point here, obviously. But I think there needs to be a really close look at Stephen Ross's ownership of the Miami Dolphins, because talk about conduct detrimental to the league in honor of Tom Brady's career. Let's bring up the phrase conduct detrimental to the league. Stephen Ross, multiple occasions, conduct detrimental to the league.
Yeah. So another thing that's clearly not the number one story about this lawsuit that I do want to mention, though, is a lot of people, myself included, I think Alex, you included as well, would love to see Brian Flores back here in some capacity. If he doesn't get one of the 32 head coaching jobs, him putting a private text message with Bill Belichick on the front page of his lawsuit, page number 1, a text from Belichick that also has Belichick making a kind of careless mistake and looking a little bit like an idiot, quite frankly. I would really like to hope and think that Bill somehow signed off on this. But at the same time, knowing that it's going to be public record and knowing that it's going to get out and seeing how that text message looks and getting Bill involved in the first, I don't know. There's a lot of things here that I wonder now how much would Bill want Brian Flores back at this point, right? That he's suing the NFL, that he's putting his name on lawsuits and all those types of things. I hope that this is Bill signing off on something like this, but I don't know. I do wonder.
So there also may be and again, I'm not a legal expert. I don't know exactly. There might be some complication where if he's engaged in a lawsuit with the NFL, he can't work for an NFL team. So there could be some, I don't know for sure. There could be a complication there. Right. I would think Bill, I do think Flores respects Bill. I do.
Yeah. I bet you
and
do. Yes.
Obviously, I think Bill also respects Flores. I would think Bill signed off on that. And what a great showing that would be for Bill with Brian Flores, where there's a real chance he just put his career on the line. If Bill said, you know what, you should be a head coach, but you're too good to be unemployed. Let's get you back in here. Let's get you back in the league. I think that would be a great gesture from Bill if he did in fact bring Flores back, assuming Flores can and wants to come back.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on here. Now I want to talk about Josh McDaniels, the Raiders, Patriots offensive coordinator position here moving forward. McDaniels up there at the podium yesterday in black and silver, getting introduced as the Raiders head coach. There were some moments there where I thought the look on his face was kind of like, did I make a mistake? Maybe those were just some of the freeze frames that we got, right? Some of the confused looks or the bewildered looks of Josh McDaniels. But I've gone back and forth on this so many times because I think that there's definitely two schools of thought here that are both correct. And I think that's what makes this thing a little bit tricky for me. Josh McDaniels is a good football coach, right? He is a good football coach. I think that's a fact that it can't be disputed. At the same time, on the other hand, the Patriots might benefit from having some fresh ideas and having some fresh perspective on the offense, right? So both those things can be mutually exclusive. Like they can both be true. But I have a tough time looking for where they go from here in terms of, is this a good thing for the Patriots ultimately that Josh McDaniels is out of the building? Because he lost a good football coach with tons and tons of experience that's coached at the highest level in the biggest of games. But you also have to recognize that at times the offense has not been what the Patriots needed to be moving forward.
Yeah, so I don't know that we can fully answer that question yet because we don't know who's replacing him, right?
Fair enough.
I think if they bring in Bill O'Brien and it's seamless with Mac Jones and he can add some of that more modern stuff into the offense, I don't know that it's necessarily a good thing McDaniels left, but I don't know that it's a bad thing either, right? You kind of took that next step. That's the NFL. That's what happens. If they bring in somebody who's over their head and suddenly Mac Jones' play looks shaky and the offense takes a step back, then you're going to wonder, wow, what, if McDaniels had stayed, would they have kept making progress? So I don't want to take a total cop-out answer, but again, I don't think you can answer that question without knowing who's next. I think they have it creates a big-time situation and a very important decision for Bill Belichick here. And, let's hope he gets it right. But, was it when Bill O'Brien left? I remember people talking about, well, is this a bad thing that Bill O'Brien left? And boom, Josh McDaniels comes back and they win 3 more Super Bowls. So let's see how that goes first.
So I agree with you that you need to see the hire first. I also agree with something that you just said about how big of a decision this is for Bill Belichick. I think everybody understands the gravity of that, right? I think that we recognize Mac Jones in his second season, young quarterback, trying to usher in a new era of Patriots football, all that type of things, the rebuild, all of it. This to me is a potentially career swinging move. And I know that sounds really like, big, but what I mean by that is he cannot just, to me personally, unless they really feel very strongly about some of these in-house candidates, losing a coordinator like Josh McDaniels with that kind of experience, with that kind of responsibility, and replacing him with Mick Lombardi is a tough stretch for me. I think you really need to get somebody like a Bill O'Brien that has coached before in the NFL at that level, that has coordinated, that has called plays. Maybe that's even been a head coach, because that is such a big role and such a big responsibility with a young quarterback that I have a really tough time going the promote from within route. And I think Troy Brown's going to be a good coach in the future. I actually think Nick Caley is a pretty good coach, and Mick Lombardi very well might be a very good coach. Who knows? But to promote one of those guys and give them play calling duties, give them mentorship of Mac Jones without being experienced with coaching experience at this level, at that magnitude, of that rank in the hierarchy. To me, when I look at what's gone on the defensive side of the football, the fact that he's given Steve so much power over there, I feel like if he just promotes from within and promotes one of his assistants from within, it sounds to me a whole lot like what's going on defense, right? Like it really feels to me like a little bit, especially, and no offense, I'm not saying anything negative about a guy like Mick Lombardi, but that definitely sounds a lot like what happened with Steve, right? You promote one of your best buddies' sons to OC,
Right.
This is a decision that I think needs to be handled a lot better than how they handled the coaching hierarchy on defense, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. They need to get somebody in here that has experience, that has chops, that has coordinator experience, that has maybe, like I said, been a head coach. This cannot, I see a lot of things out there that this cannot be Brian Hoyer, right? This cannot be Troy Brown, in my opinion. There's too much on the line for those.
Here's the other, real quick. Here's the other thing to remember about Brian Hoyer. People keep saying, make Brian Hoyer the quarterback's coach, make Brian Hoyer the OC. That's great if he wants to do that.
Yeah.
What you people need to understand, first off, there's going to be a market for Brian Flores to be a backup quarterback, whether it's in New England or elsewhere. What he did with Mac next year, he has a job in the NFL if he wants it.
Yep.
He's good as a backup quarterback. He's going to get paid close to 10 times what he would get as a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator, okay?
And he has to work half the hours doing it, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So, look, if he wants to step away and coach, he's more than welcome to step away and coach. And then, yeah, I think making him the quarterback's coach is an excellent idea. Would you take, would you take a 10th of your current salary to work twice as much and you don't get to still be, living out your childhood dream of a career? Probably not. So just remember that when it comes to Brian Hoyer. You're asking him to walk away from a lot of money when you want him to be a coach.
So I threw out a bunch of names. We've thrown out a bunch of names about who could possibly succeed McDaniels. In my opinion, I think the Patriots need to get two guys to replace Josh McDaniels. I don't think one guy is enough. I think that Bill O'Brien comes in, calls plays, and gets the offensive coordinator title. And I would also think about bringing in a full-time passing game coordinator as well, like some of these other teams have, whether that's a Joe Brady, whether that's taking a Chad O'Shea out of Cleveland, whether that's a Zach Robinson, right, a former Patriots backup quarterback in Los Angeles. I think that you need to get two guys to replace one here, because McDaniels was so entrenched in this system, so entrenched in what they were doing here and in the program, that I'm not sure that one guy is enough to replace all that Josh McDaniels did for the Patriots offense. I think that it can be fresh ideas. I think that they can benefit from all of that sort of stuff. But I really think that they need to have a really good structure on the offensive side of the ball. And if it was me, I would definitely look at replacing McDaniels with two people. And I personally would vote for Bill O'Brien and a guy like Joe Brady. I don't think that will happen. I think it will be more connection than that. Maybe Bill O'Brien calls up Tim Kelly, his offensive coordinator in Houston, and brings him with him to the Patriots as a quarterback / passing game coordinator. I think that we're underestimating just a little bit, because we are excited to see what this offense could turn into under different hands and under a different vision. We're underestimating a little bit all the responsibility that Josh McDaniels had, right? And all the things that he did and all the things that he touched on. He was able to run the offense by himself. He was able to run the offense as a one-man show in terms of being like the head coach of the offense. Now I think like they need to be able to have multiple guys that are like that. And I'm just not convinced about any of the guys that are in-house, to be honest with you. I just don't know if any of those guys can really bring on any more responsibility than they already have.
I agree. Again, I want a veteran. I want a guy who's been there, done that, and that's O'Brien. Maybe it's Chad O'Shea.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I don't buy the Joe Judge thing. I know you're in on Joe Judge. I don't buy Joe Judge.
But the thing is I don't buy Joe Judge as the play caller. But if they want to bring in Joe Judge just to have another adult in the room on the staff, then that's a different story, right?
Okay, bring Joe Judge back as the special teams coordinator. He doesn't need to be. They can get another adult in the room on the offensive side of the ball. Go get Kevin Falk. I know Deion Branch just took his new job at Louisville, but maybe you can convince him that that's a quick stay or something. Let Joe Judge do special teams.
Sure. Joe Judge can do special teams. I just think that they got to get two guys. And especially if Ivan Fears is actually going to retire as well. Because if they're losing McDaniels and Fears in the same offseason, then they got to replace a ton of brain power on that offensive side of the ball. And I think that they need to go out and get multiple guys to fill those shoes. I don't think that it's as simple as, we're going to promote Vinny Cincinnati from assistant running backs coach to running backs coach, and we're going to bring in Chad O'Shea to be the coordinator, right? I don't think that's enough for that side of the football. What are your thoughts on McDaniels and with the Raiders, though? Do you think that this is going to work out? Because something it tells me, I'm not saying he's going to win a Super Bowl there. I'm not saying he's going to start a dynasty with the Vegas, but I actually think he's going to fare a lot better this time around than he did last time.
I think he can have success there. The real question to me is, what do they do with the quarterback, right? And he was pretty non-committal when it came to Derek Carr yesterday, like one way or the other. And I didn't expect anything different. I didn't expect him to say, yeah, we're going to sign him to a new 10-year deal, or yeah, we're going to move on. But they can kind of go either way. I feel like the Raiders might push him to get a new quarterback, because isn't that why you hire Josh McDaniels after what he did?
Not from this class, though. Like, that's the thing. If I'm Josh McDaniels, I'm not latching my wagon to any of the quarterbacks.
No. But that's the thing. Like, you have another year at Carr. So, I mean, maybe you take a guy in the 3rd round, 4th round this year, right? You take a flyer, but you give Carr one more year, and then you go look at it. I think Carr is a good quarterback for Josh McDaniels' offense. So if they do stick with him, I think there could be something. The other thing is that division is just so tough with Mahomes and Herbert and probably Rodgers, right? We think Rodgers is going to Denver. So how long of a leash do they give him? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
They might win. Like, realistically, if they win let's say the next 3 years, what did they win this year? 10 games, 11 games?
10 games.
Let's say they win double-digit games the next 3 years. There's a real chance they miss the playoffs all 3 of those years, winning double-digit games. Yeah. So is Josh McDaniels a failure or what? It's a really interesting spot. I think, does he succeed? It depends how you want to define success. I think he's going to win football games. I think he's going to have the Raiders competitive. Look, if he can get a quarterback like a Mahomes or a Herbert, then that would be a home run. But I think he'll be all right. It's just a matter of how long's his leash.
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I think that he wants to hang on to Derek Carr, because if you draft a quarterback, and we've seen this how many times, when you draft a quarterback, you got to make
who he drafted last time.
Right. Sure. Or we can look at, Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky, or Brian Flores and Tua, or whatever comparison.
Well, remember, Brian Flores didn't want Tua.
That's true.
Remember that.
You can make any of those marriages, right? If McDaniels, they're not going to draft a quarterback, at least in the 1st round this year, but let's say they draft a quarterback in the 1st round next year and move on from Derek Carr. Now the McDaniels-Ziegler experience rides on them making that quarterback work.
Right.
If that quarterback tanks, then they're going to get fired. But with Derek Carr, I feel like they have some stability there, and they probably are a 9-10 win team next year. So I think that's the way that they're looking at it. I think McDaniels might have learned his lesson with Tim Tebow. And I know that Tebow just wasn't a good quarterback in the NFL. Now it's just a bad pick because of a talent evaluation thing. But hitching your wagon to the young QB when you don't have the job security of, let's say, like a Bill Belichick, right, is a really tough thing to do for a coach that's on his last leg. Like, if Josh McDaniels doesn't make it work this time, he's never going to be a head coach again in the NFL. So that's the way that I look at it with McDaniels. I want to talk some Senior Bowl stuff. I wish we had more information right now on who the next OC for the Patriots is going to be, but it's pretty quiet on that front. We're probably going to be in a holding pattern, I would say, for another couple of weeks, if not months. This is one of those things where the guy kind of shows up at minicamp when we get there in June or July, and he's just kind of there, right?
Did I say it on the last show, or did I say it on a different show? That I think the longer it goes, the more likely it is it's O'Brien.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Senior Bowl. Unfortunately, we did not get to watch practices today. They took that off the air. I've seen some tweets. I've seen some things about the tackle play from Brandon Thorne on Twitter, who's a great Twitter follow for offensive line and defensive line. But a lot of the big names, unfortunately, did drop out, Alex. No Devin Lloyd, no Jahan Dotson. But any names that you've seen on Twitter today or anything that we didn't already mention earlier, Lazar on Sunday or whatever it was when we did the Senior Bowl preview, is there anybody else that you wanted to touch on?
Well, I'll give you this one right now. I'm actually just seeing this. Oregon safety Verone McKinley was just added to the roster an hour ago, according to Jim Nagy. So he wasn't at practice today, but it sounds like he'll be there tomorrow. He's one of my favorite safeties in this draft, potentially a day 2 pick. And I think this is something I've been high on. I know the report out there right now is Devin McCourty's coming back. Even if he does, I think you need to have his replacement ready. I think that's a guy you need in the building with McCourty to learn from him. Verone McKinley, there's not a ton of great free safeties in this draft. Verone McKinley's one of them. So he's a guy I'll definitely have an eye on. I that's pretty cool that he just got added. I guess Jaquan Brisker backed out of the last minute, who's another safety I really like. So that works. One of the few clips I saw today, Travis Jones, the nose tackle from UConn, just absolutely blowing up some linemen for Michigan. I think there's a chance Patriots are in the market for a nose tackle. So Travis Jones, another guy. I still got my names all written down and everything, but in terms of what I saw, I'm trying to think, was there anybody else that I saw clips of today? It was Christian Watson from North Dakota State. Apparently got a heavy workload. He's a guy, kind of that sleeper, 3rd, 4th round small school guy, but a lot of people are really high on him. 6'5", ran a 4.40 in training last summer. So looked like he had a busy day. You can, by the way, you can see the list on 985thesportshub.com. Can't hear you. You muted? Is Evan muted? Am I the only one who can't hear him? Still can't hear you. Can nobody else hear Evan, or is it just me?
Know what happened.
There he is. There he is. No, we got you.
You got me now?
Yeah.
Jeez, this thing gets a little bit finicky. I was not muted. It was I don't know what happened. Anyways, tackles. I saw some clips of O-line, D-line one-on-ones, and some of the tackles that I liked that I've watched didn't do so hot, Alex. So I think that's going to be something to keep looking for and keep seeing with guys like I know everybody saw Daniel Falele. I think I'm saying that correctly, from Minnesota. 6'8", 381 pounds. That is a big boy. Unfortunately, apparently in back-to-back one-on-ones, he gave up the edge on the first one, and then he got bull rushed to the ground on the second one. Falele, a 380-pound guy getting bull rushed and pancaked to the ground by a one-on-one rep is not great, right? You don't want to see that. The other guy that I thought might be interested to the Patriots is the tackle from Central Michigan. I'm going to butcher this name too. Bernard Raymond, I think is how you say it. And he's a tight end to left tackle convert. Got some Brian O'Neill, Nate Solder type vibes with him going on. But he's an older prospect. So those guys typically, you kind of see what you get, right? They don't, their developmental tracks are not quite as advanced as some of the younger guys. He also got blown around the corner today too in one-on-one rep. These are just a couple of reps, and we know from training camp that you don't want to, take too much out of just a few reps. But I like both those guys as day 2 tackle prospects for the Patriots. It doesn't look like they had a great first day at the Senior Bowl, so that'd be interesting to keep monitoring moving forward. I don't know if I'm assuming you saw this, Alex, in the measurements yesterday. Roger McCreary has the shortest arms in the world. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but he's got 29-inch arms.
Yeah.
Which I'm telling you, I know it's crazy. I know it sucks. I think it's personally stupid, but in a lot off the board in the first round for probably every single team. You just don't draft 1 percentile arm length corners in the first round. I know it's archaic. I know it's thresholds and measurables and all that kind of stuff. And the Patriots have at times, like with Isaiah Wynn, they've gone outside the measurable check boxes, right? And they've taken guys that are just great technique guys. But short arms on a corner that you hope that can play on the outside, that's usually a recipe for a guy that's going to fall out of the first round. And McCreary's got first round cover talent, right? He can really stick with guys, and especially in press man. But I don't know if he's going to be on the Patriots board as high as the first round anymore with that measurement.
Yeah, I think with him, the other thing is too, he's listed at 6'1" by Auburn and came in at 5'11".
Yeah.
So you're just talking, the Patriots, he's a really good man corner, but you talk about length, he just doesn't have it anywhere. The biggest measurement thing for me was Troy Anderson coming in at 242, because we've talked a lot about these, the Patriots compromising, not the 260-pound pure downhill linebacker, but not the 220-pound guy that's essentially a safety, somewhere in the middle of that 240, 245 range. Troy Anderson played at 230 in college. If he's now going to come in at 240, we were texting about Anderson a little bit last night. For those of you who don't know who Troy Anderson is, went to Montana State, was recruited to Montana State as a running back. Then he played quarterback. He was an all-conference quarterback. Then he switched over to linebacker, was an all-conference linebacker, went back to quarterback, went back to linebacker, and was the FCS Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's got great athleticism. He's got a monster football IQ, having played both sides of the ball at that high of a level. He's somebody I think the Patriots would really like. And the fact that he's a little bit on that bigger side, he could make a lot of sense. He's a day 3 pick because his game's still a little raw by nature of moving all the positions. He's a great athlete. He's smart as hell. And if he's going to be a little bit on that bigger side where he can meet some of these blockers in the hole, I think he makes a ton of sense for the Patriots. So that was my big takeaway from the measurements, at least.
Don't sleep on my guy, Mama. I love me some.
He's really good. Chad Mumma's really good, but here's the thing. They're going to look at it, and I'll let you explain Chad Mumma in a second, but they're going to look at it as Chad Mumma in the second, Troy Anderson in the fifth.
You're right.
But anyway, Chad Mumma, you might as well get people's hopes up anyway.
Before in past drafts with the whole tiers or bucket system that the Patriots use, and they look at it and they say, a Chad Mumma, how much better is Chad Mumma than Troy Anderson? Probably not that much better, right? We're not talking about a guy that's a first-round talent versus a guy that's a sixth-round talent. We're talking about a guy that's both guys are in that 50 to 150 range, right? And they're going to look at it and say, those guys are basically the same. But Chad Mumma is, I think he's a really, really good football player. And the two things that I always look at with these linebacker prospects is I want to see IQ, but I also want to see movement skills. But you can have the best athlete in the draft at linebacker, but if he doesn't know where he's going, then it doesn't matter how fast he is, right? But the ability to read blocks, anticipate things, see what's going on in front of you from a blocking scheme's perspective, and be able to anticipate and get to spots, that's where you need to be at that position, in my opinion. And Chad Mumma is 110% one of those guys where you see like a lot of the tape that he has because of where he's playing at Wyoming. It's a ton of misdirection. It's a ton of backfield action from a lot of these teams in college. So you have motion and you have sweeps and you have play action and you have multiple mesh points and things like that. And he's able to read it all out. And he's able to have very few false steps, and he'll see, okay, here comes the jet motion, here comes the back handoff, balls with the back, I'm going to the pullers, right? And he breaks on it like this. Those are the types of things that I always want to look at for linebackers. I know a lot of people like the Georgia guy, Channing Tindall, as well. Yeah. He's a very, very explosive athlete. He can go sideline to sideline and up the field in a hurry. He's an interesting prospect. Arrow has definitely pointed up on his development, so we'll see what happens with a player like that.
Sucks Quay Walker's not there. That's really my guy out of Georgia.
Quay Walker not being there is a tough one. Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver from Penn State, he must have been an injury situation because it made all the sense in the world for Jahan Dotson to show up to the Senior Bowl because the wide receiver group is not that impressive. Right. So, like I said to you last night, like he would have looked like Randy Moss next to these guys, right? He would have looked like the best receiver in the class. I remember a couple of years ago, Nico Collins went to the Senior Bowl. Similarly, didn't have a great class around him at the Senior Bowl. He starred and he really helped his stock. He moved up the board quite a bit. So I'm surprised Dotson didn't participate. It must have been some sort of injury or something else going on. But we'll see. I think this is going to be a fun Senior Bowl regardless, even though some of the big guys went down and didn't aren't participating. But Alex and I will come back on Thursday. Alex, we're gonna have Trags on Thursday.
We're this week, not next week.
Yeah,
I guess he's pretty busy next week.
We
got it.
I keep forgetting about the freaking Super Bowl bye week. It's really throwing me off.
We can have him on this week, but wouldn't it make more sense to have him on next week?
Yes, we're gonna have Trags on next week to talk about the Bengals and the Rams in the Super Bowl. So have him on next week. We'll do some more Senior Bowl talk on Thursday. Maybe we'll open it up and do a Q&A on Thursday.
So here's what I've really wanted to do. Can I pitch something?
You can pitch it.
I tried to get us to do this show last year and never worked out. People ask us about prospects in the comments.
Yes.
And we give our thoughts on them, but it's rapid fire. So we can't talk for more than like you give us a name, we do 2 minutes on that prospect. That's it. We move on.
2 minutes on a prospect. That's hard for me.
Just rapid fire prospects. I think it would be fun. I think it would be. Well, that's the point. It's a challenge. I like a challenge.
Okay, I agree with that. Q&A rapid fire prospect style on Thursday here on Patriots Beat. We'll talk about some draft picks. We can throw some free agents in there too, right? If you want to throw a free agent.
Oh yeah, we can do that with free agent. I honestly have done no work on free agency, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we know those guys pretty well just from watching around the league and paying attention to the league as a whole. But we'll do that on Thursday. Next week, we'll talk some more Super Bowl with Trags on next Thursday. And Tuesday, we'll recap the Senior Bowl for sure. And we'll talk about what happened in the game on Saturday. And we'll continue to monitor Patriots OC, Patriots Brady retirement nonsense. We'll see what ends up happening there. If they make any sort of formal announcements here coming up soon, hopefully about some sort of commemoration, celebration of Brady's career here in New England, hopefully coming up here at some point in the offseason. And always check out Patriots Press Pass. Please subscribe. Can't say that enough. On Patriots Press Pass, on Patriots Beat, so we can continue to do these shows and bring you all this Patriots coverage. And we will see you guys on Thursday for that rapid fire Q&A. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.